Okay, so you want to talk about classical music in sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you're interested in how it goes like way beyond just like those big Olympic fanfares.
Yeah.
And luckily, we've got this Sound of Sports episode from Classical Crescendo, and it like dives deep into that exact thing. And we've got some history, we've got some fun facts, we've got even a few controversies.
Yeah, what I find really interesting is that the link between music and athletics actually goes back centuries.
Really?
Yeah, even to the original Greek Olympic Games.
Wow.
Back then, music was a fundamental part of the whole event.
Hmm.
It wasn't just like background noise, it was woven into the very fabric of the experience.
Huh. That makes you wonder what kind of music they were playing back then.
Right.
I mean, did they even have what we consider classical music?
Well, their concept of classical was quite different from ours.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a world of lyres and aloes flutes accompanying like poetic recitations and athletic feats.
Wow.
And over time, as musical styles evolved, so did their use in sporting events. Military marches and folk melodies eventually paved the way for the pop anthems we hear today.
Oh, so where does classical music as we know it
Yeah.
fit into all of this? It feels like it's always been there, especially at those big ceremonies.
It has played a surprisingly significant role.
Mm.
Think about those grand fanfares that announce the start of a ceremony or the arrival of important guests.
Oh, yeah.
Those often draw inspiration from classical brass compositions,
Cool.
and they instantly grab your attention in setting a certain tone.
You think they're designed to make you sit up a little straighter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the power of national anthems.
Oh, yeah.
Many are directly rooted in the classical music traditions of their respective countries,
Oh.
either written in a classical style or heavily influenced by a nation's renowned composers.
Yeah.
Hearing them played in a packed stadium, particularly during international competitions, evokes a powerful sense of shared heritage and national pride,
Wow.
both for the athletes and the spectators.
And some sports, like horse racing and tennis,
Yes.
seem to have held on to those classical roots more than others.
Yeah.
It gives them an air of prestige and tradition, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those sports have consciously woven classical music into their identities, using it to underscore a sense of history and continuity.
Okay.
It's a way of connecting their present events to a rich past.
But you can't talk about classical music in sports without bringing up the Olympics.
Right.
They're almost synonymous in my mind.
The Olympics truly represent a grand stage where these two worlds collide spectacularly.
Yeah.
Take the Olympic hymn, for example,
Oh, yeah.
composed by Spyros Samaras.
Uh-huh.
The music embodies the spirit of international unity and sportsmanship that defines the games.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's not played in its entirety that often.
Right.
Yet you can still catch snippets of its melody
Yeah.
during different events.
Yeah.
It's almost like a subtle reminder of those Olympic ideals.
Exactly. It's woven into the sonic landscape of the games, subtly reinforcing those core values. And then there's the iconic work of John Williams.
Oh, John Williams.
His contributions to cinema are legendary,
Yeah.
but he's also brought his magic to the Olympics.
His Olympic fanfare and theme for the '84 Los Angeles Games.
Yes.
And Summon the Heroes from the '96 Atlanta Games are instantly recognizable.
Absolutely iconic.
Yeah.
They perfectly capture that blend of grandeur and excitement that defines the Olympic experience.
Yeah.
Those soaring melodies, driven by powerful brass and string sections, have become synonymous with athletic achievement and international competition.
It's hard to imagine an Olympic highlight reel without them at this point.
I know, right?
And each host country gets to showcase its own classical music traditions during the opening and closing ceremonies, which adds another fascinating layer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for them to share a part of their cultural heritage with a global audience. The Beijing 2008 opening ceremony, for example, was breathtaking in its fusion of traditional Chinese music with grand orchestral arrangements.
And then London 2012 took us on this incredible journey through British musical history with a special spotlight on their own classical composers.
Yeah.
It felt like a celebration of national pride expressed through music.
Speaking of national pride, let's delve into national anthems.
Okay.
Many of them have deep roots in classical music, which might not be immediately obvious to everyone.
It's true. You don't always think about it, but when you start listening for those classical influences, they're definitely there.
Yeah.
Take France's La Marseillaise, for example.
Okay.
It has this powerful, almost martial quality that perfectly reflects its origin as a revolutionary anthem.
And musically speaking, it embodies the spirit of early romantic melodies, which adds to its emotional intensity. The combination of historical context and musical style gives it that extra weight.
Then there's Germany's Deutschlandlied, which actually uses a tune from Haydn's Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser.
Yeah.
That stately grace you hear is classic Haydn.
And when it's orchestrated for a full ensemble, that classical elegance truly shines through.
And you can't forget Japan's Kimigayo.
Right.
It's one of the oldest national anthems in the world and often played in a traditional orchestral arrangement that emphasizes those beautifully tranquil string melodies.
Yeah.
It evokes a sense of solemnity and reflection that's very unique.
Hearing these anthems played in a stadium surrounded by thousands of people really drives home that feeling of shared heritage and national identity.
Yeah.
It's classical music working on a deeper level, connecting us to something bigger than ourselves.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
These days, it's pop music that dominates the modern sports arena.
Yeah.
You've got those high-energy rock anthems, infectious hip-hop beats, and everything in between.
It's true that pop music holds a prominent place in today's sporting landscape.
Yeah.
But even amidst that, classical music still finds a way to make its presence felt. It might not always be center stage, but it's woven into the experience in some really interesting ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some teams use those short, powerful fanfares before games.
Yeah.
Inspired by composers like Aaron Copland or Gustav Holst.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a sonic call to arms, getting the crowd pumped up for the competition.
Those bold, rhythmic pieces are definitely rooted in the classical tradition, using elements of orchestration and composition to build anticipation and excitement.
And then you have that classic victory moment.
Yeah.
You know, the home team wins,
Yeah.
and they blast a snippet of a triumphant overture by Tchaikovsky, or even Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
Oh,
It's like the music itself is celebrating alongside the fans.
it's the perfect way to amplify the joy of victory, creating a shared moment of euphoria between the team and its supporters.
Yeah.
And some leagues even bring in orchestras or marching bands for halftime entertainment.
Oh, wow.
It's a fun and engaging way to expose people to classical music in a setting that feels familiar and accessible. You might be surprised to learn how often classical music appears in boxing and martial arts events as well.
Really?
Fighters will make dramatic entrances to pieces like Ennio Morricone's The Ecstasy of Gold,
Oh, wow.
which has that grand orchestral sound, or Karl Orff's powerful O Fortuna.
It's all about building tension and excitement before the match even starts.
Right.
It's like a mini performance in itself, setting the stage for the confrontation to come.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are sports where music is essential to the performance itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Figure skating immediately comes to mind.
Oh, yeah.
Skaters often choose pieces like Ravel's Bolero or selections from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake because they provide a framework for them to showcase both their technical skills and their artistic expression. It's a beautiful blend of athleticism and artistry where the music becomes an integral part of the performance.
It's like they're painting a picture on the ice and the music is their brush.
Right.
It goes beyond just athleticism. It becomes a form of storytelling and emotional expression.
Rhythmic gymnastics is another great example.
Oh, okay.
Athletes meticulously choose classical or neoclassical pieces that complement their movements and the apparatus they're using, whether it's ribbons, hoops, or clubs. The music provides structure and enhances the grace and precision of their routines.
It's all about timing and synchronization, and those classical compositions provide the perfect framework for those intricate movements.
Exactly.
It's like a choreographed dance with music as the driving force.
Yeah.
Even artistic swimming, synchronized swimming,
Yes.
often incorporates orchestral scores to add drama and help the swimmers stay perfectly in sync.
Those crescendos and tempo changes in the music really enhance those underwater acrobatics.
Yeah.
It's like a beautifully choreographed underwater ballet set to a classical score.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Okay.
Opera and sports. At first glance, you might not think they go together.
Right.
But there's some fascinating examples of how they do.
You'll often see renowned opera singers like Andrea Bocelli or Placido Domingo performing national anthems at major sporting events.
Oh, wow.
Their powerful, classically trained voices bring a whole new level of grandeur and emotion to the occasion.
And some sports promotions have cleverly used famous opera arias in their commercials or marketing campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Nessun Dorma from Puccini's Turandot?
Yeah.
It became a global phenomenon during the 1990 FIFA World Cup, largely thanks to Luciano Pavarotti's iconic performance.
And now that area is practically synonymous with the passion and drama of those major soccer tournaments.
Wow.
It's amazing how a piece of opera can capture the spirit of an entire sporting event and become permanently associated with it.
Even boxers have walked into the ring to pieces like Cante Partido, Time to Say Goodbye.
Really?
Which is so unexpected.
It creates a really interesting contrast between the brutality of the sport and the beauty of the music.
It's like the music is adding another layer of complexity to the whole event, making you think about the fighter's emotions and motivations. Speaking of unforgettable moments, there have been some truly iconic instances where classical music took center stage in the world of sports.
The 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona is a prime example.
Oh, yeah.
Plácido Domingo, José Carreras, and Montserrat Caballé performing together at the opening ceremony was simply legendary.
Their voices filled that stadium, and it felt like a true celebration of music, culture, and athletic achievement, all coming together in this one magical moment.
And World in Union, the anthem for the Rugby World Cup, is such a powerful and uplifting piece.
Yeah.
It's set to the melody of Faxted from Gustav Holst's Jupiter, which is part of his famous suite, The Planets.
Wow.
It's a brilliant example of how a classical melody can be adapted into a powerful sporting anthem that unites fans from all over the world.
And of course, we can't forget one of the most iconic moments in figure skating history.
Right.
Torvill and Dean's performance to Ravel's Bolero at the 1984 Winter Olympics.
That mesmerizing repetition and gradual crescendo in Ravel's score, combined with their groundbreaking choreography, is etched in the memories of anyone who witnessed it.
Yeah.
They absolutely earned that gold medal and solidified their place in sports history.
Okay, so we've seen all these amazing examples.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, why is classical music so effective in a sporting context? What is it about these compositions that works so well in these settings?
Well, for one thing, orchestral music possesses an unparalleled ability to amplify emotions.
Okay.
It can fill you with anticipation, swell your heart with pride, and even bring you to tears of joy when your team triumphs.
It's like it takes those raw, visceral emotions that are already present in a sporting event and elevates them to a whole new level.
Classical music also has this remarkable ability to transcend language barriers, resonating with people from all different countries and cultures.
Yeah.
That's crucial for events like the Olympics, which bring together athletes and fans from every corner of the globe.
It becomes a universal language of emotion, uniting people through a shared musical experience.
Another crucial factor is the inherent prestige and tradition associated with classical music.
Okay.
Incorporating those centuries-old compositions into a sporting event adds a sense of gravitas and timelessness.
It's like you're drawing on this rich well of cultural heritage, elevating a sporting event from mere entertainment to something grander, more historically significant.
And when you pair a pivotal sporting moment with an iconic piece of classical music,
oh, yeah,
it becomes indelibly etched in our collective memory.
Think about those moments we just discussed.
Yeah.
Torvill and Dean, Barcelona 1992. World in Union.
Exactly.
The music is inseparable from the event itself.
It adds a profound layer of meaning and emotion that lingers long after the game is over, becoming part of the story itself. Now, while we've highlighted all the positive aspects, it's essential to acknowledge that there are some criticisms surrounding the use of classical music in sports.
Of course.
Yeah.
Every story has multiple sides, and it's important to consider those different perspectives.
One of the main concerns is the potential for over-commercialization and the impact that can have on the integrity of the music.
Okay.
Some people argue that using revered classical pieces as background music for commercials or sponsor-driven events cheapens them, exploiting them for profit rather than appreciating their artistic value.
It's like they're being reduced to a commodity instead of being recognized as the complex works of art they truly are.
On the other hand, some argue that this kind of exposure introduces classical music to a much wider audience who might not otherwise encounter it.
Oh, yeah.
It can spark an interest in those who might not typically attend a symphony orchestra concert.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Right.
There's also the issue of overexposure and repetition.
Yes.
Certain pieces, like O Fortuna, are played so frequently at sporting events that they risk becoming cliches,
Right.
losing their original impact.
Critics argue that this constant repetition can strip the music of its nuance and power, turning it into mere background noise rather than a meaningful element of the experience.
And then there's the question of accessibility.
Yeah.
While major leagues and high-profile events can afford to incorporate live orchestras and commission new works, Smaller leagues and grassroots sports often rely on more affordable options, like recorded music or simpler soundtracks.
That raises questions about whether classical music is becoming too elitist in the sports world.
Yeah.
Accessible only to the most well-funded organizations. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It seems like finding a balance is key.
Right.
We need to respect the depth and richness of classical music traditions while also harnessing their power to enhance the sporting experience in a way that feels authentic and meaningful.
It's an ongoing dialogue, and as with any art form, the conversation about its use and interpretation will continue to evolve.
So what do you think the future holds for classical music and sports? Any predictions?
Well, it's an exciting time because technology is opening up so many possibilities. Absolutely. Imagine stadiums equipped with 360-degree speaker systems or augmented reality that can seamlessly blend live sporting action with virtual orchestras.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Right.
It could totally transform how we experience both sports and music.
Yeah.
It would be like stepping into a whole new world.
We could also see more virtual collaborations.
Oh, okay.
With orchestras performing remotely from iconic concert halls and being live streamed into stadiums worldwide.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
It would expand the reach of classical music and connect people from all over the globe in this shared musical experience.
Yeah.
It would be like a global concert happening in real time.
And let's not forget the potential for cross-genre compositions.
Oh, yeah.
Blending classical instrumentation with modern beats and electronic elements to create these epic custom anthems that appeal to a younger audience while still retaining the grandeur of orchestral music.
It feels like the possibilities are endless.
I know, right?
Whether it's through those traditional orchestral pieces, cutting-edge sound technology, or those exciting genre-bending collaborations, one thing is clear.
What's that?
Classical music and sports are a match made in heaven.
They'll continue to find new and exciting ways to intertwine, creating unforgettable moments that captivate and inspire fans around the world.
It's a relationship that has endured for centuries and will undoubtedly continue to surprise us with its innovation and creativity.
Exactly.
Now, before we move on,
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that this entire deep dive is centered around exploring the specific content you've provided.
Right.
We're here to delve into the Sound of Sports episode you shared and help you extract those key insights and fascinating details.
We're like your personal guides through this world of classical music and sports, helping you connect the dots and understand the nuances of how these two seemingly disparate worlds come together.
And as with any good deep dive, certain bits of information tend to stick with you more than others.
Oh, absolutely.
For instance, did you know that Classical Crescendo is actually a YouTube channel? That's where this podcast episode originally came from.
Oh, wow.
It just goes to show that classical music is alive and well, finding new audiences and platforms in unexpected places.
It's a great reminder that classical music is adaptable and constantly evolving, reaching people in ways we might not always anticipate.
Speaking of the unexpected, one of the things that stood out to me was the sheer variety of ways classical music is used in sports.
Yeah.
It's not just about those grand ceremonies and national anthems.
It's woven into the very fabric of the sporting experience, often in subtle but impactful ways.
Like those pregame fanfares that get the crowd energized, or those snippets of triumphant music they play after a big win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating an atmosphere, building anticipation, and amplifying those raw emotions we associate with competition and victory.
And honestly, who knew that boxing and martial arts had such a strong connection to classical music?
Yeah, I know, right?
Those dramatic entrances set to pieces like The Ecstasy of Gold or O Fortuna were almost theatrical.
It's like the music is setting the stage, telling a story before the fight even begins.
And then you have sports like figure skating and rhythmic gymnastics,
Yes.
where the music is absolutely essential to the performance itself.
Absolutely.
It's not just background music, it's a partner in the dance.
The athletes meticulously select pieces that complement their movements and elevate their artistry, resulting in a seamless fusion of athleticism and musical expression.
And the fact that opera has found its way into the world of sports is mind-blowing.
From opera stars singing national anthems to those iconic areas being used in sports promotions.
Yeah.
It's a testament to opera's enduring power to move and inspire us, even in contexts we might not expect.
It adds a touch of grandeur and drama that you wouldn't necessarily associate with sports, but somehow it works perfectly.
It's a testament to the versatility of music and its ability to transcend boundaries and genres.
Okay, I have to ask, do you have a favorite sporting moment? where classical music truly elevated the experience.
Well, I'm a bit of a figure skating enthusiast, so I have to say that Torvill Dean's Bolero performance at the 1984 Winter Olympics is hard to top.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
It's one of those performances that transcended sport and became a cultural touchstone.
The synchronization of their movements with the music, the gradual buildup of intensity, and the sheer emotion of it all were simply breathtaking.
Yeah.
It was a moment that captured the world's imagination.
It really speaks to the power of music to create lasting memories and connect with us on such a deep emotional level.
Yeah.
Now, we did touch on some of the criticisms surrounding the use of classical music in sports.
Right.
And I think it's important to acknowledge those different viewpoints.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The concern about over-commercialization is valid. When classical pieces are repeatedly used in advertising or as generic background music, it can feel like they're being stripped of their artistic value.
It's like they're being reduced to a commodity rather than appreciated for the depth and complexity they possess.
And the issue of overexposure is definitely worth considering.
Yeah.
When we hear the same pieces over and over again in different sporting contexts, they can start to lose their impact.
It's like that song you used to love that suddenly became the soundtrack for every commercial on TV.
Right.
You start to tune it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between celebrating classical music and making sure it's not being exploited or diluted.
And of course, we can't forget about the issue of accessibility.
Right.
Not all sports leagues and organizations have the resources to incorporate live orchestras or commission original works.
That's true.
It's important to ensure that classical music doesn't become an exclusive privilege reserved for only the most prominent and well-funded events.
We need to find ways to make it accessible to everyone regardless of their level or background.
That's a great point, and it ties into the larger conversation about arts funding and education. If we want to see classical music flourish in all aspects of life, including sports, we need to invest in programs that nurture young musicians and make music education accessible to everyone.
It's an investment in the future of our cultural heritage.
Yeah.
And it's something we should all advocate for.
Now, before we stray too far from our main focus,
Okay.
let's bring it back to the core purpose of this deep dive.
We're here to unpack the key takeaways from that Classical Crescendo episode and help you synthesize all this information.
What are some of the things that stood out to you from our discussion so far?
Well, for me, it's the sheer diversity of ways that classical music is used in sports. It's not just about those big bombastic moments, but also the subtle ways it enhances the overall experience.
Absolutely. From those pregame fanfares to victory anthems to those carefully selected pieces for figure skating and gymnastics, classical music is truly woven into the fabric of the sporting world.
And it's not limited to a specific type of sport or event.
It's everywhere. From the Olympics to local boxing matches, classical music has found its place in virtually every corner of the athletic world.
And it's not just about entertainment either.
Right. It can evoke powerful emotions, create a sense of unity and shared heritage, and even elevate a sporting event to a level of art.
It's a reminder that music and sports are more intertwined than we might initially realize.
They both possess this incredible power to inspire, to move us, and to create unforgettable moments.
And when they come together, the results can be truly magical.
Now, while this episode focused specifically on classical music's role in sports, it's got me thinking about all the other ways music intersects with our lives.
It's everywhere once you start to really pay attention.
From the music we listen to while working out to the soundtracks of our favorite movies and TV shows, music shapes our experiences and emotions in countless ways.
It's a universal language that connects us across cultures and generations.
It's a potent tool for communication, storytelling, and simply making life more enjoyable. I think this deep dive has highlighted how important it is to be mindful of the music we consume and how it affects us.
Whether it's the latest pop hit or a centuries-old classical masterpiece, music has the power to move us, inspire us, and even change how we see the world.
It's something worth celebrating and exploring.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a little something to ponder.
Okay.
We've discussed all the incredible ways classical music is used in sports.
Right.
But what about the flip side?
What do you mean?
Well, are there any classical pieces that you think would be a bad fit for sports? Maybe something too slow, too melancholic, or just too different? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
That's an intriguing question.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think about the specific qualities of classical music that make it work so well in a sporting context. It makes you realize that it's not just about slapping any old classical piece on top of a sporting event.
Yeah.
There's definitely an art to choosing the right music for the right moment. Absolutely. It's about understanding the emotional nuances of the music and how they align with the energy and atmosphere of the sport.
Okay.
For example, think about something like Barber's Adagio for string.
Oh, that's a hauntingly beautiful piece.
Right. Exactly. It's incredibly moving, even heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
But probably wouldn't have the desired effect of getting a crowd pumped up for a big game.
Unless it's for, like, the saddest sports movie montage ever.
Right.
You need that, like, slow-motion emotional punch.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
Or imagine trying to use Mahler's Symphony Mon. 5 in a sporting context.
Oh.
It's a masterpiece, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly long and complex, with movements that shift dramatically in tone and tempo.
Yeah. You'd probably lose the audience somewhere in the middle of the Adagietto movement.
Right.
They'd be wondering when the game was going to start again.
And certain avant-garde or experimental classical pieces, while fascinating in their own right, might leave the average sports fan scratching their heads.
It's that, wait, is this even music? Moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It all comes back to understanding the purpose of the music and how it's being used.
Okay.
Classical music is incredibly diverse,
Yeah.
encompassing a vast range of styles, emotions, and compositional techniques. There's a time and a place for everything.
So it's not just about the music itself, but about how it interacts with the specific context of the sporting event.
Right.
This whole discussion has been really eye-opening.
It's been fascinating to delve into these connections, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the thought and intention that goes into using classical music in sports.
Yeah.
It's more than just background noise. It's an integral part of the experience.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive. Classical music, when used effectively, can elevate the sporting experience.
Yeah.
Adding layers of emotion, drama, and meaning that resonate with both athletes and audiences.
It's about making those connections between the physicality of sport and the emotional power of music, creating moments that stay with us long after the game is over.
Exactly.
It's like weaving a richer tapestry, you know?
It's about enriching the experience, making it more memorable, more impactful.
This deep dive was all based on the material you brought to the table.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It shows how much there is to discover and explore within the world of classical music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've only just scratched the surface here. There are countless other examples, connections, and interpretations waiting to be uncovered.
So keep listening, keep exploring, and keep those ears open for the surprising ways classical music pops up in your life.
You never know where you'll find it next.
And that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Wow.
Thanks for joining us on this sonic adventure.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into something amazing.
Sounds good.
Who knows what we'll explore next? The possibilities are endless.
It really is remarkable how much ground we've covered just by digging into this one episode of Classical Crescendo.
I know, right?
It speaks to the richness of the subject matter, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think it highlights something we often take for granted. The sheer power of music to shape our experiences, even in the world of sports.
Right.
We've explored everything from the historical significance of national anthems to the emotional impact of a perfectly chosen figure skating piece.
And we've even delved into some of the controversies surrounding the use of classical music in a commercial context.
Yeah, it's not always a straightforward relationship, is it?
Definitely not.
There are valid arguments on both sides of that debate.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, classical music has become an integral part of the sporting landscape. And its influence is undeniable.
I think this deep dive has given us a lot to ponder.
Yeah.
It's made me more aware of those subtle musical cues that enhance the drama and excitement of game.
Yeah.
I'll never watch the Olympics the same way again.
Me neither.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely be paying more attention to those fighter entrances and halftime shows.
Oh, yeah.
Listening for those classical influences.
Perhaps you'll even start noticing classical music popping up in unexpected places.
Yeah.
A commercial, a video game, or even just background music at a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Once you start listening for it, you'll be surprised how often it appears.
It's like a secret language.
Yeah.
Adding depth and richness to everyday experiences.
And that's the beauty of it. Classical music has this incredible ability to transcend time and context, connecting with us on a deeply emotional level, no matter where we encounter it.
Well said. So to wrap things up, I want to thank you for joining me on this fascinating deep dive into the world of classical music and sports.
The pleasure was all mine.
It's always a joy to explore these topics with someone who shares a passion for both music and athletics.
Absolutely.
But a huge thank you to you, our listener, for providing the inspiration for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Your curiosity is what fuels our explorations.
We encourage you to keep those questions coming and continue to delve into the topics that spark your interest.
And until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep exploring the world with an open mind and a curious spirit.